let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Tracy Wilen. Dr. Tracy Wilen, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
How are you?
I'm very good.
I have to tell you that in reading your bio, I'm fascinated with that you have been on countless television programs, in countless newspapers and journals. I understand that you are out of, am I right, Stanford, Connecticut?
No, I'm out of California.
You are. Okay.
I'm in the Bay Area, Palo Alto.
Why do I feel that, why is Stanford coming to me when they told me a little bit about you?
Because I was a visiting researcher at Stanford for over 10 years while working in Silicon Valley.
Ah, okay. Got you. Okay. Now, what I was told and what's in front of me is that you are a prominent thought leader on the impact of technology on society, which actually is fascinating to me. But before I get to my questions, I'd love for you to elaborate as to what that means.
Oh, sure. So I live out in California in the Bay Area, which is part, Silicon Valley is based, and I've been an executive at some Silicon Valley firms that you might know, such as Apple Computer.
I've heard of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes.
Good go. And I did research at Stanford University while working, and I look at how technology is really changing society, work, skills, careers, and really is changing, the nature of work and what we do. Because, I grew up in a very, I would say, classical world, right, where a liberal arts degree and high school degrees were got us employment. But today we're in a digital world and things are changing. And so that's what I look at.
Now, the change at the workplace, are you referring to the way people pick careers? Are you talking about the impact of the work that we do and how it affects our lives individually and as a society?
Well, I look at both of those. So one, for example, is one of the changes in society is that we're living longer. They project, there was a National Geographic cover saying that a baby born today will live to 120. And many people will live today until 100, which means we might be working until we're 80, and that was unheard of years ago, right? So I think that's a change. So the nature of your career or work could span for 60 years, where in the past it was only around 30. So I look at that, but I also look at the types of jobs have really changed too. About 70% of jobs will have some sort of technology component by 2020. And so we need to think about, everything from airline industry to banking to food services, that, technology is everywhere.
What about the, and I don't know if this is an area that you have explored, but what about the mental health piece of all of this?
Oh, absolutely. If you think about it, our baby boomer generation is living longer and demanding and requiring a lot of services. And these can range from physical therapy to mental health therapy to preventative health to occupational therapy. So I think actually healthcare is a great career for people to look at, just because as a population we're living longer and we'll need a lot of services. And it's not just on the medical side. It's vacation services, it's driving services, it's, care services. There's a lot of things that we need to think about as our population ages.
Now, I want to remind the audience that they are listening to Preferred Company with Joel Markel and Marianne Levy on WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. And with me today is Dr. Tracy Wilen, a prominent thought leader on the impact of technology on society, work, and careers. Dr. Wilen, how has the technology that we are all using today, faced with today, challenged with today, how has it steered our decision in picking a career?
Well, and I think that's a good question. So let's just take something like robotics, right? Manufacturing. If you go to some of these car factories, many of them are almost like 90% assembly lines, but with robotics. So if you were in manufacturing, there you would probably need to understand robotics and also something called 3D printing, right, which is the whole prototyping of how do you create prototypes using a 3D printer with metal or plastic as the ink. So manufacturing has really shifted from what we say from the blue collar to the gray collar. It's not just necessarily manual labor anymore. It's understanding manual labor plus also automated labor. So I think that's one example. Another example, if you think about just traveling on the airlines, you might remember that you used to buy a ticket and wait on a long line. But now when you buy a ticket, there's a kiosk, or a lot of people like to go on, for example, Southwest, and just buy it on the internet, right, or the website the night before. And actually you even can get some perks by doing that with better seating. So that is an example of how software and the internet has really changed the nature of some of these service industries. A third area would be like the banking industry. You may remember, or you may still go to the bank and deal with a bank teller. But many people actually go to an ATM machine, right, an automatic transfer machine where you can get cash, deposit checks, instead of actually waiting online inside. So there's another example of technology is really changing some of the types of jobs that were very manual in nature.
Dr. Wilen, I have given a lot of thought having or raising children now, and obviously a man who goes to work every single day outside of this radio station. My feeling is that the greater we have invested in technology, the less we are invested in human interaction, and we are not the social beings that we once were. Any feelings about that?
You know, there's two sides to the coin with technology, right? So a lot of people don't see the positive aspects of technology because if you look at industries, you see how people are being displaced, right? But what I see, for example, out in Silicon Valley, the statistics are, for example, for every job like an Apple computer creates, 7 additional jobs are created, right? Because the iPhone requires apps. Mm-hmm. The iPhone has many additional pieces to it. And it requires, there's no socialization that is, I think, lost. I think a lot of people feared the printing press, and we would stop reading books. Or the radio would mean that we would stop conversation. Or TV meant that we would dumb down, right, and watch visual instead of thinking. So I think the way I look at it is technology actually helps us evolve. In fact, there were some studies done that IQ is actually increasing with time because we're using different skills. Some people say different parts of our brain. So I think technology can help us socialize even more. If you think about it today, I use email, phone text, Facebook, social media, and I connect with many more people today than I have in the past because I was limited to just my classroom, my work environment, or my neighborhood. And today I have thousands more of contacts.
Once again, for anyone who might have just tuned in, you're listening to Preferred Company with Joel Markel and Marianne Levy on WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. And our preferred guest today is Dr. Tracy Wilen. Dr. Wilen, one of the things that I have read about you is the impact of technology on women in the workplace and women's leadership. How, I don't see the connection between the two, but you are the expert.
Well, so this is another example of how technology helps society evolve. If you think about it, it was really technology like vacuum cleaners, dishwashers, microwaves, laundry machines that help separate women from the home, right? Now that we have all of this automated, and today actually we even have robotic vacuums, which I love. So, technology itself has helped women remove themselves from being bound to the home. Number two is, in my case in point, technology such as airlines, right, have helped me travel the world as a professional woman in my job. I was not required in international business to actually live overseas, which would have been difficult, but I could commute regularly using the advanced technologies and frequency of flights to be able to go overseas. A third area that a lot of women are embracing, and men, is the whole online jobs, whether it's freelancing, whether it's call centers, whether it's online tutoring or teaching. There's a whole variety of jobs that opened up that maybe people who can't physically go to an office or are at home with kids can now be employed in a variety of new industries, all due to technology.
Now, not being an expert in the subject matter that you are, my question to you is this: has all of the progress that we have made in technology affected society in a way so that society has since deteriorated?
It's a good question. I think the areas that concern me with technology is, of course, around security. Technology doesn't create security issues or breaches, but it can be another channel for evil people, right? So there's good and evil in the world. And I'm dismayed that we have to deal with that. But, I was reflecting on the Boston Marathon, and they took an old device. Actually, my grandmother had a pressure cooker and put a bomb in it. So that's not a technology, breach of security. So it just says to me that evil exists. But I do get concerned when I see security breaches of people's, identity or, viruses on computers. And I think, wow, these smart people could be so much more productive if they use their technology talent to evolve the world rather than, create issues in the world. So that's the one area that concerns me around technology.
Well, one of the things that I notice about technology is, there are two questions that I have for you. One is, has it made people less productive in the workplace? In that there is Facebook, there is email, there's, I know I sign on to my Yahoo 5 times a day, which is not my work email. So there's a lot of playing that goes on in the workplace that wouldn't be there if it were not for modern technology. Any feelings about that?
Well, yeah, I really do, because I think actually technology makes us incredibly productive, and there's been a number of studies on that due to technology, for example, mobility, we have the ability to work all the time, right? So I'm still working on the plane and I'm still working at home. I'm not limited to only working in an office environment. And I think what you're suggesting, has Facebook replaced the water cooler? People are, people are going to socialize.
I love the analogy.
Yeah, is that where they're spending their time now, rather than, chatting in a non-productive way? And I think that's people's choices. I think that's how you structure work, and how do you design work so that people are productive and don't have unutilized time. And I think that's one of the changes that you see in the workplace, is that it isn't about tasks anymore. Many times the work and the job is structured around objectives, so that you feel more motivated to complete an objective, and how do you design your own productivity? So I think a lot of it has to do with, one, are you a productive person? And then two, what's the nature of work and how are you measured to get, that dictates your productivity.
Before I ask you to give out because I see that there's a whole list of things here. You're going to be on tour, if I understand what I have in front of me. But I do have a question or two before we start giving out your contact information and where you're going to be. And that is, what about the fact that a disease like diabetes has become an epidemic, and the fact that certain physicians, social workers, people who analyze society, believe that it might be that we are at our desks all day versus perhaps in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, where people were hustling and bustling around Manhattan. You had to walk from place to place, whereas now to deliver a message, you just press a button, so that we sit at our desks for hours at a time sometimes.
Well, it's a good point. I think physical fitness and diet are individual choices. I don't think that technology necessarily drives that. I think technology helps us in that you can get wearable technology today, like the Fitbit. You can monitor your health. You have more ways of measuring your sugar and your heart rate and keeping on top of yourself. I don't see technology making me less physical. I actually stand all day in an ergonomic desk, so I'm probably burning a lot more calories than someone who's going into an office. And because I don't sit in a car and commute, and I remember those commutes to Manhattan from Long Island, let me tell you that, because I can work online, it gives me 4 extra hours a day to work out, to walk, and to do things. So I think, again, it's a choice. And if you can look at technology and say, that's making me very productive, and now I have extra time so I can eat better, sleep better, work out, and take care of myself better than if I had to get up, take a shower, get dressed, go to an office, commute all day, sit all day, come home and be exhausted and do it over again tomorrow. So I think it's, again, up to the individual to make those decisions.
Now, you have authored approximately a dozen books, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I have 11 books. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. And there is one that is bolded, which is Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends. Is that the title?
Exactly. So that book just came out this year, and it was really talking about this whole idea that we're living longer and that people want to be or need to be employed for life. Because let's face it, being able to retire is like the new American dream. It used to be owning a home. But today, people are saying, how am I going to afford to retire, and what do I need to think about in terms of health, education, technology to make sure I am employable for life?
Now, I also know that you're doing a corporate speaking tour on just this topic.
Yes, I talk on 3 topics, and thank you for mentioning that. Corporations do bring me in globally to talk on women in leadership, technology and the future of work and skills and careers, and also on being employed for life. And I travel globally. I've been to Australia and Europe, South America. This month I'll be in Washington, D.C., New York, Europe, L.A., and, I really enjoy it very much because I really like helping people with this aspect.
Well, before I go to break, I do want to thank you for being here today, but most importantly, I want you to give out your contact information.
Oh, thank you, Joe. So my website is Tracey, Tracey, Wilen, WILEN.com. My Twitter is @TraceyWilen. My Facebook is Dr. Tracey Wilen. And you can find me on LinkedIn just by looking up Tracey Wilen.
Well,